Group chat is back. Elliott, I got to ask you, as a lawyer and someone who worked at ICE, I believe.
5 years, yeah.
Tell me sort of about whether or not the Supreme Court is really going to get a chance to talk about this. Like, how long has this legal conversation been brewing?
Oh, it's been brewing for quite some time. Now, the Supreme Court will inevitably get the case at some point. Someone is going to challenge this action. Any of these aggressive moves to revive tactics that existed in the 1750s or whatever else always seem to end up getting challenged in some way, and they create strange bedfellows in the Supreme Court. The big picture point is that the court tends to be pretty deferential to the president's ability to carry out law enforcement and immigration enforcement. So I would assume they tend to side with him in some way.
Yeah.
But again,
but this is birthright citizenship.
Oh. Specifically on birthright citizenship. Oh my gosh, I thought you were talking about the sort of the last point, the alien point. Oh gosh. Now, separate issue here. Now, birthright citizenship. There's a fringe argument that the Trump administration really is making on birthright citizenship. It has been the case since 1898 that the Supreme Court has interpreted people born in the United States to be citizens of the United States. I think, though, if you read between the lines of what they're doing, they're more challenging federal judges' abilities to create nationwide injunctions, right? The mere fact that one judge can...
Okay, you're nodding at this? You understand these words?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Daily Signal folks really love this.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think Daily Signal once connected to heritage, right? Am I making that connection correct? It feels like these are long time wishes, ending birthright citizenship, making English the main language. Like now that the right and Republicans are getting these shots, is the goal of the Supreme Court?
Sure. Well, Elliott has it exactly right, because conservatives right now are concerned that these federal district court judges are using these universal or nationwide injunctions to put a stop to a lot of Trump's policies. And I think that that's what they want the Supreme Court to resolve.
Because they know they can't win on the birthright citizenship point because it is settled law. So what, in their current filings, what they're challenging is the fact that one judge set a decision that affected the whole country. Now, to be clear, I'm not endorsing that view, partly because if something is a matter of constitutional law, if one judge makes a ruling that only applies to people in one state, that means you have 49 other states that don't have the same constitutional protection.
Yeah,
that's silly.
Like
a judge needs to be able to reach
This
across
also feels, though, like a question of who's in power, right? Because when Biden was president, nationwide injunctions were a way for Republicans to hit back on policies they didn't like. They would go judge shopping in the same way that they accuse Democrats of doing so now, to challenge laws that they didn't like. So it's one of those things where, depending on who's in power, you're against nationwide injunctions, you're for nationwide injunctions.
I mean, here's what feels different to me. I feel like in this second term, the attempt to expand executive power is very public, very direct, and really pushing as far as possible, right? And I mean, Carter wanted more executive power in the 70s. Rob, you're nodding. I mean, does this make sense? Like, it feels like 90% of the push in any of these policies is about, actually, we should be in charge of that.
There are a lot of conservatives on Capitol Hill who exert their Article 1 authorities. They want to see Congress take more action. Unfortunately, we've seen over the course of decades, Republicans and Democrats try to accumulate more power in the executive branch. And so I don't think Donald Trump is doing anything different than his predecessors have tried to do with their own means.
I strongly disagree with that view. More than anything else, the presidency has gotten stronger throughout time. What we've seen over the last 3 months has been an alarming expansion of presidential power with an eye toward what's probably a friendly Supreme Court. A number of the justices, including Justice Roberts, Justice Kavanaugh, have embraced the idea of a very strong executive, and I think they're trying to push that way in a way that
And I think, though, we shouldn't lose sight of the core argument that's being made about birthright citizenship, because it's not just a legal argument, it's a cultural argument about who gets to be an American. This is maybe one of the only countries in the world where someone can come here and become a citizen and be seen as that. Not just because you have the same.
Which is that exact sentence is a for and against argument.
I mean, some people don't like that, but it's a fundamental part of the American identity for generations. And changing that, I think, is a much more important part of the Trump agenda than specific laws or specific wins at the Supreme Court.
I want to do a look ahead. What are you guys keeping an eye on in the coming days, Jerusalem?
I'm keeping an eye on these measles cases. We're at 250 cases nationwide now. We've seen deaths at this point from measles. You should get your measles vaccine. It is safe. It is
It's
effective.
spreading to a number of states.
Spreading through states.
Elliott?
Donald Trump speaking at the Justice Department today. It's not it's
No,
not.
no,
I don't
like,
know.
that's
It's wild.
intriguing, yeah.
It's not unprecedented, but very exceptionally rare. He will say something that defies all norms of law enforcement. The question is, what does he say and how egregious is it?
Rob Bluey,
As we just saw, protesters took over Trump Tower yesterday. I think that this debate that's raging within the Democratic Party over the shutdown could fuel more protests over the weekend.
All right, I want to thank you guys for talking with me. We talked about Snow White. We talked about the Supreme Court. Per the usual, this is a lit group chat. I appreciate your time.